So like I said, we just finished this series called Build the Wall, and that whole series was about building walls of protection around the things that are the most important to you. And so first of all, I talked about building a wall around your heart. And then I talked about building a wall around your mind. Then I talked about building a wall around your church. Now, I would have talked about building a wall around your family, but instead I decided to just do a whole series on the family. And so this morning we're starting a series called The Modern Family. Everybody say The Modern Family. And so what we are going to do is we are going to tackle 5 of the biggest issues that we deal with in our families. And those issues are time, money, kids, marriage, and sex. Now, let me ask, let's take a poll real quick. How many of y'all are married? Okay, how many of y'all want to one day be married? Okay, nice, that's a lot of us. How many of you deal with time management issues? Oh yeah, okay, how many of you need more money? Oh yeah, that's everybody. How many of you have kids? Okay, is anyone interested in sex? 2 hands. Yes. So, here's what I need you to know. This series is for everybody. This series is for everyone had to raise your hand at some point in that. Whether it was sex, whether it was money, whether it was marriage, you raised your hand. So the modern family, we're going to tackle the 5 biggest issues. I'm really excited. And as we get started, I'm just going to ask the Lord to bless our time together. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes? Heavenly Father, I just ask, Lord, that you would speak through me today. God, help me to put away my flesh and allow you to use your Holy Spirit to use my mouth. Father, I love you. I just pray that you would speak to every person where they are and what they need. You give it to them. And Lord, I love you and thank you and praise you in your precious name I pray. And everybody said? Amen. Okay, I want to kick off this sermon this morning starting in 2 Timothy chapter 3. So if you have your Bibles, you can turn there with me. 2 Timothy chapter 3, and I'm going to read 5 verses 1 through 5. Here we go. If you don't have your Bibles, you can join me up on the screen. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. I'm reading out of the New Living Translation. It says, "You should know this, Timothy." Everybody say Timothy. Nice. "That in the last days there will be very difficult times. For people will love themselves and their money. They will be boastful and proud, scoffing at God, disobedient to their parents, and ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. They will be unloving and unforgiving. They will slander others and have no self-control. They will be cruel and they will hate what is good. They will betray their friends, be reckless and puffed up with pride, love pleasure rather than God, and they will act religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. Stay away from people like that." Y'all, can I share a little bit of a reality with you this morning? As I read those scriptures, I recognize this is the kind of battles that our families are facing right now in our culture. Now, it kicks off this whole group that it says in the last days. I don't know if we are in the last days or if we're not in the last days. As a matter of fact, I don't know how many days are considered to be the last days. But what I do know is as I read the rest of that is how people are going to act and how people are going to be in the last days. What I see is a pretty good picture of what we're going towards and what it's looking like in our culture and in our society today. Amen? So this series on the family is really all about setting a new standard for what the modern family should look like. Because as God's children, we shouldn't conform to the culture. Thank you. But rather, we should set new standards for the culture to conform to the Christians. Amen? So we're talking about these 5 things: time, money, sex, marriage, and kids. And here's why these things are the biggest issues. Are you ready? I'm going to put a scenario together. Because this is what your typical modern family looks like. I graduate high school. I fall in love with someone. Because we fall in love, we get married. Everybody say, ah. We get married, and when you get married, you're broke. And the only thing that you have time for is sex. So we have sex, and then we have these kids. And these kids come out, and when the kids come out, you no longer have any time. So I went from this single guy with money and time to now, because I got married, and now I'm struggling in my marriage. I have no time. I'm fighting about my kids, and I got no more sex. And what happens is, this is your typical modern family. What happens is we go through several years of this looking like what our family is, and then it winds up getting in divorce because we lose connection with each other through all of this time. Amen? Can I be honest with you this morning? That's what 55 to 65% of families look like right now. We are at the biggest peak of time where people, when their kids leave their house, they lose it for each other and they get a divorce and go to somebody else. Because that's their only connectivity. This is the modern family. But it doesn't have to be the modern family. The picture of my family does not look like that. And it will never look like that. Amen? And a picture of Christians' family should not look like that. So in so many ways, what happens is even inside of the church, we begin to mimic what the modern family looks like in time, in money, in sex, or you could say purity, in marriage, with kids. We begin to do things the wrong way. And so we're tackling to get away from what the modern family looks like and what the modern Christian family should look like. That's what we're going to be talking about. The very first thing that I want to talk about in this series is something that is so hard to manage, and it's pretty much the one thing that we can never get back, and that's time. You know, thinking about my family right now, I am absolutely blown away. I have a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 6-year-old, and it seems like we just had them. I can't believe my 16-year-old is driving. I can't believe my son's driving. And then my other son's driving in 1 year. He'll be driving. In 5 years, there's a pretty good possibility, because their last name is Pogue, that none of those three will be living with me anymore. Possibly married. We get married young and we move out young. It's just one of those things. I'm trying to hold on to them, but I don't know. And so I'm looking at all of this, 16, 15, 13, 6. Where did the time go? Is that just me, or is that y'all's life too? Where did the time go? Did I not manage my time well? I ask that question a lot. Me and Christy, we actually have this conversation a lot. See, time may not seem like a big deal when you think about the family, because you think about things like money and sex and marriage and struggles and counseling and all of those things. But time is one of the biggest issues in our families. I want to show you an example of why time is such a big issue, and I hope that you're going to walk through this with me. I'm going to tell you a story. Probably several of you have heard this story before, but every single time I hear this story, it gets time into perspective in my mind. So I'm going to tell you this story. There was this businessman, and he's got a young family, and this guy was like infatuated with work. Anybody ever struggle with being a workaholic? Yeah, you can lift your hand, Dad. I mean, if you want. I'm just kidding. And so he was infatuated with work. And his mentality is, what I do for my family is I bring in the bacon. Like I'm bringing in, I provide the house for you, and I provide the things for you. And that's his mentality. So he doesn't actually give his family a lot of time, because his mindset is, I'm giving them the physical things that they need. And so his son comes up to him one day, and they have this conversation. I want to read it to you. The son is about 6 years old, and he says, Daddy, can I ask you a question? And the dad says, yeah, sure, what is it? And he says, how much money do you make per hour? And the dad looks at him like, are you kidding me? That's none of your business. I'm not telling you how much money I make per hour. And so the boy kind of puts his head down. He's like, okay, well, can you please tell me how much money you make per hour? And he goes, okay, but don't tell anybody. I make $100 an hour. Everybody go, I wish that was me. I make $100 an hour. And so the son puts his head down, and he's thinking for just a second. And then he goes, well, can I borrow $50? And the dad says, are you kidding me? You asked me how much money I make an hour just so you could get some money from me? Go up to your room. You're being selfish. And so the boy goes up to his room, and he's got his head down. And after a couple of hours, the dad is sitting there thinking, I wonder what in the world he wanted $50 for. Any of y'all got struggled with that with your kids? Mm-hmm. So he's thinking about this. It's going on in his mind. And finally he goes in and he opens up the door, and his son's laying down in the bed. And he says, hey, are you awake? And he says, yeah, I'm up, Dad. And he goes, hey, I've decided I'm going to give you this $50. So he walks over and he hands the kid $50, and the kid jumps up and he's really excited, and he flips over his pillow and he grabs a whole wad of cash, and he puts his $50 with the wad of cash, and his dad says, are you kidding me? You asked me for money and you had all that other money. What did you need that money for? And he says, hang on, Dad. And he's counting, and he gets 98, 99, 100, and he jumps up and he says, Dad, I have $100. Can I buy an hour of your time? can you come home and hang out with me for an hour tomorrow? And of course, the dad was absolutely crushed. Because the kid's not the one being selfish. The dad is the one being selfish with his time. And so he wraps his arms around his son and he says, baby, I'm so sorry. You keep the money and I'm going to come and I'm going to hang out with you for the next 10 days. Now, the reason that I read this story is because I don't think that we understand the magnitude of where we spend our time. I don't think, listen, it's the two biggest things that show our heart is where we spend our time and where we spend our money. Where you spend those two things, your family and everyone around you can look at you and see where your heart is. It's quiet. The story is just a short reminder for those of you that are like me, that enjoy working hard in life. We cannot let this slip through our fingers. We have got to give our best time to the ones that matter most to us. That story gets me emotional because I was that guy. Now, I didn't make $100 an hour. But I was that guy that just work. And my whole thought mentality was, Christy's taking care of them, and I'm just going to provide everything that they need. And it never really hit me that what they really want and they need from me is my time. They could care less about the rest of that stuff. Amen? While your children are at home, way more than they need your physical provision, they need you to be there with them, to love them, to teach them, to train them. And then when they leave your home, they're ready because you taught them what they needed to know. Psalm chapter 90 and verse 12, it says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Now let me show you the power of this verse. Let me flip it around for you real quick. If you flip it around, it says, if you want to gain a heart of wisdom, you must let the Lord teach you to number your days. Now, here's what God's saying. Wise people number their days. Wise people pay attention to where they spend their time. Wise people have good time management, and unwise people do not. Unwise people are careless with their time. Unwise people do not do time management. Unwise people just spend away all of their time, very similar to how we spend away all of our money, and then we just sit around and wonder where it went. So thinking about time and thinking about the family, I want to share with you 3 truths about family time that I think that you should know. And truth number 1 is this: family time is precious. You know, I can go back in my life, and I don't think that I could tell you what I got for any birthday, except for whenever I turned 16 and my dad handed me the keys to my truck. I remember that one. But any other birthday, I can't really tell you what I remember. But you know what I can remember? I can remember, and they're going to laugh at me, being a little kid and wanting my dad to look at me so bad that I was riding on a 3-wheeler and I wasn't looking where I was going, because I was turned around going, Dad, look at me. Dad, look at me. Dad, look at me. And boom, I ran smooth into a barbed wire fence. I can remember being on the trampoline jumping and somebody else getting there's 4 of us, so one of the other kids getting my parents' time. And the thing that I was concerned about was how much time I was getting from them. I can remember that, but I can't remember what I got for my birthday. I fought for the time because the time is what I wanted most. And they gave it to me. They did great. It's hard when you got 4 kids. How many of y'all got 4 kids or more? You had 4. Family time is precious, y'all. It's precious. You need to know that now because it's so precious. I was listening to the Dave Ramsey show the other day. Or I'm sorry, not Ramsey. It's just Ramsey show. It's not Dave anymore. I was listening to the Ramsey show the other day, and Ken Coleman was on, and he was talking about the struggles that we're at in our culture. And so he's talking about all of the different things that take our time, social media and Facebook and Twitter. And I'm not up to date with all the things. You probably know them more than I do. But all of the gram and whatever it is, and all of the things that take our time. And he said, I was feeling so convicted because I have a 6-year-old little girl at home, and I'm feeling convicted about not spending the right amount of time with her. And so he said, I decided, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to go home every night, and I'm going to give my best time to my daughter. And so he's telling the story, and he said the other night, we had a late night at Ramsey Solutions, and I was here till like 9 o'clock. And so I went home, and of course it's past my 6-year-old's bedtime, but just out of curiosity, I went and I peeked inside her door, and she pops her head up. And as she pops her head up, all he's thinking is, I haven't spent any time today with my daughter. That's what he's thinking when he's at work. And so she pops her head out, and he says, I bet if you give me 10 minutes, I'll whoop you in some air hockey. And she jumps up and she runs, and they run down the stairs, and they spend 10 minutes, y'all. 10 minutes. Everybody say 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Some of our families don't get 10 minutes of our time. He spends 10 minutes and he doesn't give her half of his time. He doesn't look out on social media as he's hitting the air hockey puck. No, he's giving her 10 great, wonderful minutes, because family time is precious. And after that 10 minutes, he goes and he grabs her up, and they start going up the stairs. And she said, Dad, that was the best part of my whole day. Family time is precious. I don't think that we understand the significance of our time. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 through 17. It says, so be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. I want to ask you a question. I want you to evaluate your time right now. Are you making the most out of every opportunity? Are you spending the majority of your family time on your phone or watching TV? Or is your family time y'all sitting around to watch your favorite show? Make the most out of every opportunity with your family. Your time, you only get to spend it once. Make the most out of every opportunity. Family time is precious, y'all, and it should be treated that way. One of the things that me and my boys do together is we love to play disc golf. And so we go out, and they have a rule whenever you're playing disc golf that the phone stays in the truck. You know why? The person that's keeping the score, they can bring their phone with them, but everybody else, phone stays in the truck. You know why they have that rule? Because my phone's going to ring 36 times in the 2 hours that we're on the disc course. And because they know that if they have their phone, there's going to be a temptation for them to pull it out. And then we're not going to have any time together. It's going to be us randomly throwing discs and looking at our phones. That's why they know that. Why? Because it's happened. And so we have this rule. But you know why? Because that time that we have with each other is precious. So we leave the phones in the truck, and we go, and we are actually present and with the kids, and we have a blast. Some of you have went and played disc golf with us. We have a blast out there playing disc golf. That's what we like to do together. It is so precious. Don't wait until your family is old and your children are grown to realize this truth and regret it. You know what you won't regret when you're 60, 65 years old? You won't regret working less hours so that you can have time with your kids. You won't regret missing that next Netflix series that you really want to watch to play games with your kids. You won't regret going on a date with your spouse so that y'all can have that connection that you need. But you will regret it if you don't. Family time is precious. Number 2, family time is necessary. Now listen to me. Ephesians chapter 5 says this, wives, submit to your husbands. And all the husbands said, Ephesians chapter 5 says, wives, submit to your husbands. Then it turns around and it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Essentially, here's what Paul is saying when he says that. Paul is saying, serve each other. Wives, this is how you serve your husbands. Husbands, this is how you serve your wives. You know what I have found to be true in my family? And people that I've coached in their marriage, when you serve your spouse with all of your heart and all of your might, they fall more in love with you. Serve your spouse like Christ served the church. Can I be honest with you, y'all? That takes time. Amen? How many are married? That takes time. That is not a 5-minute thing that you get to do once a day. That takes time because that relationship, like all relationships, they take time. And then, y'all, after you have this time together, then you throw kids into the mix. Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 6 says this, Direct your children onto the right path, and when they're older, they will not leave it. A lot of you have heard that one like this way: train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they get old, they will not depart from it. Hey, can I be honest with you, y'all? I know this one from experience. It takes time to train up your child. It takes time to prepare your children to go out into the world. It takes time to direct them on the right path. And if you're not giving your children the time that they need to train them and direct them, then you should not be shocked when the culture and the school and the TV and their friends train them in the way that they should not go. Y'all, our world is fast-paced. We pack our schedules so full of things that I am very, very concerned that Christians are losing our children to worldly and unchristian mindsets because we have not taken the time to train them and direct them in the ways of the Lord. You know who is giving them the time? Their friends are giving them the time. Their teachers are giving them the time. The TV, Disney is giving them the time, and Netflix is giving them the time. How about all the people that are against the Christian faith and will give all the time in the world to come against Christian things? They will give them the time. Somebody say amen. Amen. So if you want to raise up godly kids, you're going to have to give them the time. It's important to be intentional with your time. There's a quote that says, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. Listen to me. I want you to take this with your family. If you don't have a plan on training them up and giving them your time, if you don't have a plan on what it looks like to teach them how to work and to teach them how to manage money and to teach them how to be godly and to teach them how to love Jesus, if you don't have a plan to do those things, you can go ahead and rest assured that those things are not going to get done. So, number one, family time is precious. Number two, family time is necessary. Number three, spend family time honoring God. I think the biggest part of training up your children in the way that they should go is this: spending time honoring God. Joshua chapter 24, I used this verse last week, and remember Joshua standing before Israel, and Israel is trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives, kind of like our kids are trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives so many times. And he's standing before Israel, and he says to them, you know, you guys can serve whatever God you want. You can serve the God of the Ammonites, or you can serve the God of your ancestors, but I just want you to know, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Now, what Joshua was doing, listen to me, Joshua was doing was he was making a statement and taking a stand for his family. Training them and showing them how we act and how we do not act. We act like this. We do not act like that. So we are separating ourselves from acting that way and going that way. He's showing them what it looks like to take a stand for God. Are you spending your time with your family? Are you spending that time honoring God? Talking about God? Sharing what God has done for you? As you spend your time with your family honoring God, it teaches them that God is a priority in your life. And can I be honest with you? If you're not spending time with your kids honoring God, it shows them that God is not a priority in your life. Just going to church on Sunday does not make God a priority in your life. I'm going to go back to my notes on that one. You know, one of my favorite things to do as a family, and this is something that we've done for forever as a family, I love to do block parties with my family. It does so much for my family. Okay, so what a block party looks like. So how many of y'all have ever been to a Clawson block party? Oh, awesome. I love it. So here's what a block party is. Essentially, it's us going out to be crazy with a bunch of kids and share with them about Jesus and feed them and do all of that kind of stuff. But when we go to block parties, my family's required to go. We all go. And I love it So what happens is I'm running sound, and I get to watch as my wife, orchestrates and manages and has fun with these kids and leads them in the block parties. I got to watch my kids up there doing the moves to the songs and dancing for Jesus. And then I get to watch them pass out pizza, and we get to hear a word shared about a testimony about how God is awesome and how he's done all these things in our lives. You know what the statement that makes to my family? This is a priority for us. This is who we are. When we spend time honoring God, what we're saying is, Rylan, Kanan, Aiden, Emmy, this is what you should be doing with your life, is honoring him. Now, for you, it may not be a block party. It may be something else. But that is one of the things that we do, spending time honoring God as a family. And while I'm on the subject, I just want to say, don't spend time dishonoring God. Because I think that we do that sometimes on accident. If your family's watching you on the weekends, getting tipsy, getting a little bit on the wasted side, can I just say you're dishonoring God because he says don't do that? And you're showing them that you're not honoring God in that? Can I say that whenever you turn on the radio and you allow filth to come through the speakers in your car, you are making just like Joshua was making a statement, you're making a statement that says it's okay in our family to dishonor what we believe. When you turn on Netflix series and it's garbage and it's trash and you allow all this stuff to go on, what you're saying to your family is that it's okay to dishonor God in this family. So if you do all of those things, this is going to sound really harsh, but it is harsh. If you do all of those things, then don't be surprised when your kids are dishonoring God because they got it from you. So, 3 truths about your family. Family time is precious. Family time is necessary. And family time should be spent honoring God, not dishonoring him. Now, how many of y'all would say that time management in your life is a little bit of an issue? Wonderful. I actually do studies and lots of research on time management because time management and leadership is the 2 things that I love to grow in. So I want to give you a practical tool that I think can help you with time management. Okay, y'all ready? Get your pens out, pencils out. There's a book wrote by Roy Vaden, and the book is called Procrastinate on Purpose. And it sounds dumb, procrastinate on purpose. I'm not a procrastinator, but it makes so much sense after I explain it to you. Okay, Procrastinate on Purpose, very good book. What the book is about is learning how to manage your time in a way and procrastinate on the things that can be procrastinated on so that the things that you're working on are the most important things for you to be giving your time to. So he created this thing called the focus funnel. Everybody say the focus funnel. Can we get the focus funnel up on? I want to show you what these things are. So listen, I have a list, a to-do list every single day and comes out of my backpack. And I actually take my to-do list through this focus funnel every single day. Let me give you an example of this. You can find it online. It's really easy to find. So if my to-do list said, you ready? Write your message for 2 hours today, eat lunch, drink water, clean the church, clean my car, get an oil change, be sweet to my wife, contact people at the church that I feel like need to be contacted right now, hang out with my family this afternoon. Those are things that are typically on my to-do list, okay? So we're going to take some of my to-do list through this thing. And what he says is as you put things in your to-do list, what are things that I can eliminate? What are things that I can automate? What are things that I can delegate? What are things that I can procrastinate and do later? They're all important, but procrastinate and do later. And then what are things that I need to concentrate on today? So we're going to take my to-do list, okay? We're going to go through this. Are there things in my to-do list that I could eliminate? The only one that I found that I could eliminate on that to-do list was eat lunch. There are days where I mark eat lunch. I actually have on my to-do list eat lunch and drink water because if I don't have those on my to-do list, I probably won't do them. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's the truth because I run 90-0. And so I'm going to eliminate eat lunch and we're just going to eat a big dinner. So that just saved me like 35 to 55 minutes, okay? So are there things that we can automate? On this list, there's not anything that we can automate. But I have found lots of things that I can automate, like bill pay. How many of y'all actually write out checks to send every month to the bill collectors? Listen, I don't do that anymore. You know why? Because I value my time. And so what I did was I just auto did everything to where it comes out of my account to where I don't spend time worrying about the bills. They just come directly out of my account. So I automated. That saves me so much time. So we have eliminate, we have automate, we have delegate. Are there things on this list for today that I can give to somebody else? Yes, there are. Okay? Canaan can clean the car. Rylan can take the car to get an oil change. And we could clean the church together as a family. And if we clean the church together as a family, we're going to save a lot of time because there's 5. Emmy ain't cleaning nothing. We're locking her in a room because she's going to destroy the place. Actually, she can just go to Nana's house. So listen, I can delegate several of the things. You know what that saved me? That just saved me. Okay, I got 30 minutes from lunch, maybe 45 minutes from lunch. I just got like 2.5 hours saved from delegating things. Are there things that I can procrastinate on? The oil change is getting close, but we could procrastinate the oil change to a later date. The cleaning of the car depends on what it looks like and who's riding with me today. That could maybe get in the procrastinate. So then we get down to what is it that I have to concentrate on today? In other words, what I'm saying is these are the most important things for me to complete today. You know what things are non-negotiable? They cannot get marked off the list and they get circled every morning because I'm that weird guy that makes out this list and then circles everything that I'm concentrating on today. First of all, I'm going to study in my office for 2 hours and nobody's going to bother me. That is going on the list every day. Because if I don't study, I don't do well when I get up here. And so that is going every day. That's the very first thing that I do, very first thing that gets marked off. Okay, secondly, something that never gets marked off until is in the evening. I'm spending my time with my family. In the evening. If you call me and you ask me to come do something that evening and it is on my to-do list, I'm going to tell you no. You know why? Because there's things that I will not give up. You should have called me 3 days ago and we could have put it on there, okay? There's non-negotiables. You know why I have those non-negotiables? Listen to me, church. Because so many people spend their entire life working on things that are urgent, and everything is urgent, and everything tries to take my time, and we never, ever spend time on the things that we say are the most important things to us, because all we're doing is running around working on things that are urgent. We have got to say no every single time. You say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So make sure that you are saying no to the yes to the most important things. Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself working your whole life on things that are urgent and never getting to things like your family that are the most important. I believe that we consume ourselves with things that are urgent because we have a good heart and we want to do the right thing. But then we leave out so many things that are important. Would you stand with me this morning? Worship team, would you come join me on the stage? This is going to be a little bit of a different altar call because time is not just the most spiritual thing to do an altar call on. But here's what I want to do. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes and let me close this thing up. Every head bowed and every head closed. Altar team, would you guys step out and come to the front? Every head bowed and every eye closed. I want you to stop for just a minute, and I want you to evaluate where you're spending your time. I want you to put your list that you do on a daily basis through an urgent and an important perspective. And I want you to ask yourself, are you spending the most valuable thing that you have on things that are urgent? Are you spending the most valuable thing that you have on the most important things in your life? With every head bowed and every eye closed. In just a second, our worship team is going to lead us in a worship song. And if you have to go when they start, God bless you. Feel free to go. But if you're here and you need prayer, if you're here and you say, you know what, I barely spend any time with God, and I just want to go to the front and spend another few minutes with the Lord. If you're here and you have not been giving your time to your family, and you just want to wrap your family up together, and y'all find a place where you pray and you love on each other. Listen, if you need prayer in just a second, we're going to open up the altar. You can come up here and worship God. You can come up here, get alone with God, or you can come up here and get prayer. But before we do that, I just want to pray for every one of our families that during this series, God would transform our minds, our mindsets, and how we think. And then we're going to open up the altar and we're going to worship the Lord. Would you do this? If God's challenging you this morning, or if you want to grow and get better and more mature with your marriage, with your kids, with your family, would you just lift your hands, and I want to pray for you. Heavenly Father, I come to you right now. Lord, I just pray for every single person that has their hand lifted. God, I pray during these next 5 weeks, Lord, that you would manifest your presence in our families. Father, that you would help us to manage our time the way that you want us to manage our time. Help us to manage our money. Help us to manage our marriage and our kids and the purification of our sexuality. Father, I pray that you would help us to manage all of those things. God, I pray that today, just like Joshua, we would set a new standard. As for us in our house, this is where we spend our time. This is where we put our things. God, I pray that you would bless each and every person. Lord, I love you and thank you and praise you. Listen, we're going to open up the altar area. We're going to worship. If you want to come down and worship, or if you want to come down and get prayer right now, would you just step out and come?